Chloe. Hi everyone, how are you? I am going to try and see if I can get this up. How's everyone doing today? It's really nice outside. It started off cloudy and now it's, let's see. Alright, so if I can't get this to come on, that's fine. I'll read it off of the other camera. Alright, okay. So I think we have 3 guests on the phone. Hi, Arya, how are you? Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's see, I see 2 other people that have met us online. So if you'd like to, if it's your first time, if you'd like to introduce yourself, let us know your name, where you're calling from, where you joined us for the tea party. That would be great, just so we know who else has joined us for the tea party. So I'll go ahead and do some quick introduction of myself while we'll wait for some guests to arrive. My name is Deveva. I'm also known as Lady D, and I own a traveling tea party company. And so that's where we can come to you for birthday parties, special celebrations. There's all kinds of themes that you can have that we can incorporate a craft, your tea party, and like dress up and picture taking. So yeah, so for any information that you need on that, just ask your mom or dad and they can contact me. So let's see. So what we're going to do is this time, if you've noticed, I'm not sitting actually at a high tea table. I decided to show you my little reading nook in my tea room. And so there are many different types of tea parties. So you'll have what we did before is on a high table. And then we also have where you can sit on a sofa or in a chair that I am. And then it's hard to see, but there's a low table to the right of me, and that's where you'll have your teapot, your teacup. So if you have yours ready and would like to let us know what you're drinking for tea today. It doesn't necessarily have to be tea. And then what you have prepared for your meal today. So I know that last time there was lemonade at the tea table. For food, I think there was some cucumber sandwiches, fruit, cupcakes, cookies. So all of that sounds really, really good. Let's see. Let me share with you what I have in my teapot today. So this is so you can get different size teapots, and I thought I would talk a little bit about the tea, what it looks like, because most tea comes in tea bags, but inside of that is loose leaf tea. So for today, my stomach hasn't been feeling so well today, so I decided to have rose petals, and they're really small, so I wanted you to see what they actually look like. You can see that. So this is how they come loose, and usually you would have these in tea bags, so you don't get to see that, or also blended tea. So here's another example. Let's see. Hi Lily, welcome back. So if you wanted to get settled in, I'm just doing a little show and tell on the different types of teas, because a lot of times tea is coming in tea bags and then you hang that over your teacup or in your teapot. So this one, there's two different kinds that I have here just to show you an example of the color difference. So it depends what you blend them with. So this is a white tea and it's mixed with rose petals. It has what we call anise and some other, chamomile is what's in this one. So, and then this example is an very different color. You see that? It is actually, it's called blood orange. There isn't blood in this. It's just, you see this, can you hear that little shaking? That's actually dried pieces of orange inside, and it has saffron, and it's a black tea. So the color comes out really dark, dark orange. So depending what you blend in your tea, the colors are gonna change. So I did want to show you, so right now, those are all dried tea leaves. But once you put it in the water, and it's usually boiling water, you can also do a cold brew, but it takes a little bit longer for all of the flavors and the colors to combine, and that's what we call blending and infusing. But once all of that's done, a lot of the color is gone from the tea leaf or the flowers. So you can see this, you see that? That's the rose petals, but there's no color on the actual rose petal because it's blended into the tea. So when you pour this, it's a really nice pink, light pink color, which is really nice to do. So I'm going to go ahead, if you have your teapots, or if you already have your tea in your teacups, you can go ahead and start pouring. So I'm actually going to just fill the teacup a little bit under half of my teacup. And the reason why, so Lily, I know you're just joining us. As you can see the difference, I'm sitting in my little reading nook in my tea room. I have a little low table on the side of me, so I'm actually not going to have my teacup in a table. So the process for this is one, you can hold it with two hands if you like to feel more comfortable. So compared to when you're sitting at the table, your saucer is on your plate, your saucer is on the table, you just lift up your teacup. But since we're sitting at a chair or if in your sofa, you're going to have to bring the saucer and the teacup together. You can hold it like this. Now I'm left-handed, so I feel more comfortable with the weight of the teacup and the saucer to be on my left hand. So you just have to figure out what you feel more comfortable doing. But the whole time you have to have your saucer on the bottom, and then you're going to drink. So if you have your tea ready, cheers, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe Bradley's going to join us with Bella. Very good. Very tasty. So does anyone else want to share what they are drinking right now or eating? So any questions that you may have about tea or different types of tea? And we have talked about in the past that you can add sugar, honey, slices of lemon, just squeeze the lemon inside, cream. Some people actually put clotted cream that is served mostly with scones, but I have seen that too. So there's all different types, and then when you add the different things to the tea, it makes it taste different. So, all right. So I wanted to take a couple minutes before we do our little story time. I wanted to talk about a happy place. So we're going to read about Happy Land, and this has to do part of the series of Little Miss and Mr. Men story times. If you can just let me know if you've ever read of any of the books of any of the little Mrs. or Mr. Men, because one of them has to do with Mr. Happy, what we're going to read today. But so what I wanted to explain a little bit about what I mean your happy place. And let's see, Okay, so Aria, you have lemon and spearmint tea, very refreshing, cucumbers, carrots, salad with a variety of fruit with dates for dessert. Oh, those are really nice. If those are the dates that I think that they're wrapped in honey. Those are amazing. I haven't had those in a long time. That just gave me an idea to probably get some. Put that on the grocery list. All right. So when I talk about happy place, what I'm referring to is I know that things that make you happy. So playing with your toys, reading a favorite book, taking walks with your family, walking your dog, playing with your pets at home. You know, those are all activities that I love to do. But what I also like to do is create. So, for example, this is a really good example of a nook. So if you have your own room, you can just kind of make a little area where you put extra artwork, a comfortable chair, maybe a couple of pillows that you can sit on and lean back on. Just something that's will make you feel comfortable and cozy. So I always feel that everyone needs that little space. Even if you don't have your own bedroom, that's totally fine. You can put it on one side of the room that you share with another sibling, or in the living room, or a little in your den area. So little things like that. So that's just something that it's your little area where you can kind of relax, have some quiet time. And that's why I'm really fortunate that I have what used to be my office / craft room is now also my tea room. So I get to have some quiet time down here. All right, so I think we'll get started with our story, Mr. Happy. And I think, did anyone respond if they've read any of the books from Little Miss or Mr. Men? All right, so what I'll do is I'm going to move the camera forward. Let's see. Oops. Not sure what's going on upstairs. There's a lot of banging. Okay. All right, I did bring a little water so that I can drink a little bit. Okay, so this book is about Mr. Happy. So as I'm reading, if you want to just continue drinking, nibbling on your food, and don't forget your napkin. You want to make sure that you're laying this out. And I think everyone that's with us has been with us before, so this is something you're going to remember. You're just keeping this on your lap, okay? I'm not sure what's going on up there. All right, so we'll get started. Mr. Happy. I think that would be better. All right, so on the other side of the world, where the sun shines hotter than here, and where the trees are 100 feet tall, there is a country called Happy Land. As you might very well expect, everyone who lives in Happy Land is as happy as the day is long. Whether you see smiling faces all around, it's such a happy place that even the flowers seem to smile in Happy Land. And as well as the people being happy, all the animals in Happy Land are happy as well. If you've never seen a mouse smile, or a cat, or a dog, or even a worm, go to Happy Land. This is a story about someone who lived there who happened to be called Mr. Happy. Mr. Happy was big and round and happy. He lived in a small cottage beside a lake and at the foot of the mountain and close to the wood in Happy Land. One day, while Mr. Happy was out walking through the tall trees in those woods near his home, he came across something which was really rather extraordinary. There in the trunk of one of the very tall trees was a door. Not a very large door, but nevertheless a door. Certainly a door, a small, narrow, yellow door. Definitely a door. You see the door? I wonder who lives here, thought Mr. Happy to himself, and he turned the handle of that small, narrow, yellow door. The door wasn't locked, and it swung open quite easily. Who do you think's in the house, in the tree? We're about to find out. Just inside the small, narrow, yellow door was a small, narrow, winding staircase leading downwards. Mr. Happy squeezed his rather large body through the rather thin doorway and began to walk down the stairs very carefully. The stairs went round and round and down and down and round and down and down and round. Eventually, after a long time, Mr. Happy reached the bottom of the staircase. He looked around and saw there in front of him was another small door, but this one was red. Mr. Happy knocked at the door. "Who's there?" said a voice, a sad, squeaky sort of voice. "Who's there?" Mr. Happy pushed open the red door slowly, and there, sitting on a stool, was somebody who looked exactly like Mr. Happy, except that he didn't look happy at all. In fact, he looked downright miserable. "Hello," said Mr. Happy. "I'm Mr. Happy." "Oh, are you indeed?" sniffled the person who looked like Mr. Happy but wasn't. "Well, my name is Mr. Miserable. I'm the most miserable person in the world." "Why are you so miserable?" asked Mr. Happy. "Because I am," replied Mr. Miserable. "How would you like to be happy like me?" asked Mr. Happy. "I'd give anything to be happy," said Mr. Miserable, "but I'm so miserable I don't think I could ever be happy," he added miserably. Mr. Happy made up his mind quickly. "Follow me," he said. "Where to?" said Mr. Miserable. "Don't argue," said Mr. Happy, and he went out through the small door, the narrow red door. Mr. Miserable hesitated and then followed. Up and up the winding staircase they went. Up and round and round and up and round and round and up until they came finally into the wood. "Follow me," said Mr. Happy again, and they both set off through the wood back to Mr. Happy's cottage. Mr. Miserable stayed in Mr. Happy's cottage for quite some time, and during that time the most remarkable thing happened. Can you tell anything different about Mr. Miserable? Because he was living in Happy Land, Mr. Miserable, ever so slowly, stopped being miserable and started to be happy. I apologize. It's my allergies. Because his mouth stopped turning down on the corners. You see that? And ever so slowly, it started turning up at the corners. See that? What do you think is happening? We're gonna find out. And eventually, Mr. Miserable did something that he never done in his whole life. He smiled. And then he chuckled, which turned into a giggle, which became a laugh. A big, booming, hearty, huge, giant, large, enormous laugh. And Mr. Happy was so surprised that he started to laugh as well. And both of them laughed and laughed and laughed. They laughed until their sides hurt and their eyes started watering. Hi, Three Marias. How are you? Welcome. If you missed a little bit of the story, it is recorded so we can replay it for you, okay? Just ask your mom. So Mr. Miserable and Mr. Happy laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed, and they went outside and they still kept on laughing. And because they were laughing so much, everybody who saw them started laughing as well. And even the birds in the tree started to laugh and thought somebody called Mr. Miserable, who just couldn't stop laughing. They're like, who's Mr. Miserable? We don't see anyone miserable. And that's really the end of the story, except to say that if you ever feel as miserable or as sad, you should know exactly what to do now, don't you? Just turn your mouth up at the corners, go on, and turn that frown upside down. The end. Okay. So what did you think of the story? Right? I think that it's really important that I'm sorry, I was coughing before because of my allergies. But one thing I wanted to say that's a really good message about this story is that if you ever see someone that looks like they're sad or a little bit down, they're not their normal selves, that you just, ask them how they're doing and if they need any help or, is there something that you can do for them? And just, go from there and try and be a good friend, okay? Well, thank you so much for joining us. I just wanted to let you know that next week on Monday, we're going to take a trip, imaginary trip to London. So you have to pack your bags. Now, we're going to ask this time, you can wear something comfortable, but we're asking if you could try to wear something a little bit on the fancier side, maybe put a little hat on if you have gloves, maybe some extra jewelry for the gentleman if you wanted to put on a bow tie or wear your jacket, because we're going to London and we're going to meet Paddington Bear. So that's one of my favorite bears, and I love so many stories from him, so his mischievous ways that he has. So that's on Monday. We're going to take our trip to London. And then on Wednesday, we have a very special story from a local author. So I live in Springfield, Virginia. And in Woodbridge, there's a lady that, Barbara, that has 2 books. And so we're going to read one about a very special kitten that joins a family and becomes part of the family. So I thought that we would call that a Pawtea. So Pawtea. So this is we're inviting, if you would like to invite your pets, like your dogs or cats, your little birds, obviously in their little cage, and see if they'll sit with us right through the story. My Chihuahua, my little Chihuahua, her name's Chloe. So I'm gonna try and see. Her day bed is already in the tea room. But I think they took her for a walk. But I'm gonna try and have her so I can introduce you to her too. But for now, I wish everyone a great afternoon, a great rest of the week. The weather, I think, is going to be really good and continue. I know that there is a lot of pollen on the trees and dropping on the cars, so that's why my allergies are bothering me a little. But I just wish everyone you have a great weekend, and hopefully we will see you on Monday. So remember, if you can dress up a little bit more, we would appreciate that since we're taking a trip to London. Okay? All right. Have a great rest of the week. Take care.